Gay, 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 gay.
I'm white and I've got everything I need. No one clutches their purses when they're in a room alone with me. And I can drive for any neighborhood I please at any hour, and the police don't do a thing. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I got everything I need. I'm a guy getting paid more than a girl with a degree. And I can walk down the streets after dark, no one wants to rape me. And I can get a girl pregnant and just as easily flee. Just like my straight white male dad did to me. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. I've got a pile of broken mirrors and I'm walking under ladders and I'm spilling tons of salt, but to me that doesn't matter, cause my skin and my gender and my orientation are the best things to have if you live in this nation. I recommend it highly. If I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. Shit's gonna work out for me, cause I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Intellectual Dollar Tree. We do the show live every Wednesday, usually at 7, but the sun. So tonight we're doing it at 8 p.m. Pacific, probably 8 p.m. Pacific next week, but then the week after that, there will be a fucking air conditioning system where I'm at, so we can do it at fucking 3 in the afternoon if I want. You can support this project. Direct donations right now are super helpful because I think I have all my goats in the line for the move, but some shit always goes wrong. That's paypal.me/EchoplexMedia or streamlabs.com/EchoplexMedia. Also, of course, bits, subs, shit in the store, eplex.store, all that stuff. Definitely helps in the long term. I'm producer Dave, and as always, well, at least for a little while, you can find me on Grindr in the South Side.
And I'm HK Perrin. You can find me on Mastodon at hperrin@port87.social, and you can find me on email hperrin@port87.com.
What you should do, you should add one for people who found you via the Intellectual Dollar Tree, because you know those are just the top quality people. More about that on the outro of the show. Do you know who the fuck Frank Turek is?
I think I do.
Well, I
the name
don't.
is familiar.
So it says this video is from about 2 weeks ago, and it should be from about 10 years ago, because this says prominent new atheist wakes up to his main error. Why the new atheists failed, and we have some dude I've never fucking heard of talking to fucking dumbass Dave Rubin about why the new atheists failed. I'm going to guess it's because they went woke. Do you think that's going to be the reason?
Why the new atheists failed?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what they're going to say. I would disagree if they say they went woke, but
well, they haven't even said that
maybe.
yet. So hold your disagreement yet. It's a pre-agreement or whatever the fuck. Like hang on to that. Hold on to that thought, because they're probably going to talk about that shit. Anyway, here's a prominent new atheist, man I've never heard of, Frank Turek, talking to Dave Rubin about why the new atheists failed.
You had a podcast not long ago where you were talking about how Dawkins has basically said that religion does have some benefits to society. Yeah. And I think he's realizing, too, that in Britain, in particular, a tepid secularism is not going to resist a radical Islam.
Oh, no. Oh, we don't hate the Muslims enough.
Just from a pragmatic point of view, from his point of view, can maybe blunt radical Islam. So he's realizing there's some pragmatic uses to religion. But I think originally the new atheism came out of 9/11. These
Frank
fundamentalists,
Turek is a Christian
the old saying that
apologist.
Science will
Oh,
teach you
great.
how to fly a plane, but
Cool.
religion
So
will teach you how
we
to
get a
fly
Christian
plane to a
apologist
building.
talking about why new atheists failed.
Wait, it says prominent new atheist. Wait, Dave Rubin doesn't even have Wikipedia.
Yeah. What?
Here's why. I think I know why. Dave Rubin is stupid.
Is the title referring to someone else that they don't mention in the title?
We'll have to. My working hypothesis is that Dave Rubin is stupid.
Yes, that's not a hypothesis. That's a law of nature.
It's at least a law of the intellectual Dollar Tree.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And so they were really adamant against any religion, and they would put them all together. Islam, Christianity, all these religions are just basically looked at with disdain at the time. And I think people are starting to realize that's not really the way the world works. That's not really true. These religions are different, and they're different for good reasons.
I don't think anyone ever said all religion is exactly the
At
same.
the local studio here
Like, to
in
the extent
Miami,
that people have said all
Florida,
religion
and
is the
joining
same,
me
they just
today
mean
is
like,
the author of "I Don't Have
they're
Enough
similar.
Faith to Be an Atheist." Great title, man. Frank Turek. Pleasure to meet
Dave,
you.
it is a pleasure. Great being here with you.
Man, they did a really shitty job on this sign. I don't know how high the resolution is where you're at, but man, they did a shitty job on this local sign.
I can see there's like some border on that circle.
Yeah, on all of them. They did a really bad job. Is it all? Did they cut it out of paper? Did they have a child cut this out of paper?
To town, you've come
If it's by a child, the child did an
I
excellent
appreciate
job.
you making the trek. Let's start with the title of this book. I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist.
I didn't think of it. My co-author
So
did.
I should say you are technically the co-author of this book. Tell me a little bit about your
Well,
co-author.
Dr. Norman Geisler, when he died in 2019, Dave, they added up the number of books.
Okay, so he labels him a Christian apologist. So yes, the title is referring to someone else who is not in the title.
Are they referring to Dawkins, do you think?
Maybe.
It was 129.
Wow.
The man had written more books, not only than most people have read, than most people have seen, because who goes to the library anymore, right?
Right.
I haven't seen 129 books. Get the fuck out of
At one point,
here.
he and I were traveling
lot
the
of
country
people go
doing
to- what?
a talk we called the 12.
Wait a minute.
Has he ever been to a library? There's always people there.
And also, like, what do you count as a book? Because when you're in, like, elementary school, all you're doing is reading books a lot of the time, but they're just very short. They're for children.
12 points that show Christianity's true. And he went through the fine-tuning argument that the universe is fine-tuned so incomprehensibly. And after he got done with this amazing presentation, he finally said, in light of this, I just don't have enough faith to be an atheist. And I went, that
I
needs
feel
to
like
be
if
the
a
title of the
universe
book.
were fine-tuned incomprehensibly for human life, it wouldn't be that like 99.999999999% of the universe would kill us instantly were we there.
Oh, I don't want to get into the weeds about like this 25-year-old argument about the universe being fine-tuned. I would hope we don't end up there for more than the amount of time we already spent on it.
So it really was a throwaway line.
Yeah, he just said, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. So he said, well, let's write the book. So we wrote the book based on the seminar we were doing. We sent it to the publisher and they said, we don't like the title. I said, you don't like the title? What do you think the title should be? And they said, The Truth About Truth. I said, sorry, that's a deal breaker. We're going to another publisher. They said, okay, we'll stick with the title. And thankfully they did.
And the book came out in 2004. Tell me a little bit about how you two linked up your journeys to get to the book, and then we'll dive into, obviously, the specifics of why you don't have enough faith to be an atheist.
I was in the Navy, which stands for Never Again Volunteer Yourself, for 8 years.
Well, at least you got that one right.
But I came to faith by reading books by a man by the name of Josh McDowell. I was brought up in New Jersey, so I was Catholic because, as you know, in Jersey, it's the law. You're either Catholic or Jewish, right?
Yeah.
I went to Catholic high school, but I never knew who Jesus was.
This guy's funnier than Dave Rubin.
When I was in the Navy, I met the son of a Methodist minister, and I had so many questions for me. He said, Frank, you just need to get Josh McDowell books. Evidence Demands a Verdict More Than a Carpenter. So I read those books, and I began to realize that Christianity is indeed true. When I got out of the Navy, I happened to meet Norman Geisler, and he
I always think it's really weird when someone says something like, "Oh, I came to faith in like my 20s." I was like, "Oh, you were raised atheist." Or no, I was raised Christian, but I came super extra Christian in my 20s. Like,
well,
then you were always Christian.
Well, no, I don't think I think there's a lot of people who are raised like sort of culturally Christian, but haven't never thought about it until their 20s, and then they think about it and they come across what I would suggest to be the wrong answer, but at least they thought about it. So like, you know what I'm saying? Like they talk about cafeteria Catholics, or Judaism is a really good example where there's a lot of people who identify with the religion but don't really believe what's written in the fucking book because it's their culture. And I think that's he didn't say that, but that's like, I think that's the story for a lot of people that you're describing.
But he was Christian before.
But okay, should I repeat what? There's a difference
Christian
between being culturally Christian and believing the words in the Bible, HK.
Okay.
Seminary in Charlotte, why don't you come down and check it out? So we did, and 6 months later we moved the whole family there.
Did you consider yourself a believer before that, or you were just sort of nominally Catholic, or just...
Even Dave Rubin understands that, HK.
I became a believer in the Navy.
Okay, so he went from ignorant to stupid. Cool, got it.
Church, and then when I met Geisler, who I didn't know at the time, but to use a dated reference, I
didn't know him before I met him. This guy's a fucking genius.
Michael Jordan of apologetics, what we call evidence for the faith at the time. Mm-hmm. And when I met him and looked him up,
choose the term apologetics
into this field.
Whatever.
This is the guy, right?
It's like it's Latin for something. I don't remember.
If he was still at the University of Toronto, and he was still teaching.
Oh, the University of Toronto, not sending their best.
That's the guy, right? Yeah. He was the Jordan Peterson of Christian apologetics.
So the reason that I wanted to have you on now, and my producer Phoenix,
isn't Jordan Peterson the Jordan Peterson of Christian apologetics?
Interesting happening with the atheist movement, if we can call it a movement. I mean, in essence, it has basically fallen apart. Mm-hmm. From Sam Harris sort of disappearing off Twitter and having, a lot of political problems. That whole
I mean, yes, Sam Harris had a lot of, but I think we would disagree as to what those political problems are. Dave, I think you're one of Sam Harris's political problems. But Sam actually has kind of copped to that. So, credit where credit's due, just on that.
New atheist movement. I don't know if you've seen that the president of the, I think, Atheists of America, David Silverman, has basically come out and said that the atheist movement was a failure. This is just in the last 2 or 3
Yeah, but that was after he sexually assaulted someone and went crying to Sargon of Akkad.
Weeks or so.
That
was also after he left. He left the organization.
Let's say unceremoniously left. He resigned to spend more time with his family, but I don't think he's married or has kids.
Well-known atheists like Skeptic, my friend Michael Shermer, talk about how there is a purpose and a need for religion. People fill that up with something else. And of course, Jordan Peterson talking about how people end up believing whether they believe it or not. So there's something interesting.
I mean, there's literally a saying for it. Religion is the opiate of the masses.
Well, the first two people he brought, okay, so first of all, David Silverman, I think, describes himself as a non-believer. Michael Shermer would still describe himself as a non-believer. And, those two people have something else in common, too, HK.
Yep.
It might be the reason they're now both friends with Dave Rubin or something. I don't know. Who knows? We'll leave that unsaid. And then Jordan Peterson, he was never a secular person. He was always religious. He just recently became a preacher.
He has been a Christian philosopher since the beginning. He's spread Christian philosophy from the moment he became popular in what was it, 2015 or 2016, somewhere around there.
Yeah, now it's mask off though, where he's giving religious sermons and shit on his YouTube channel. He's not trying to pretend anymore that he's a secular fucking guru or whatever. Now he's a religious guru.
Yeah.
Right now, which is sort of why I wanted to bring you on. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that, just sort of what's happening right now.
I think that the new atheist movement, Dave, was a reaction to 9/11. Because at the time, The new atheists at the time were Christopher Hitchens. I had a couple of opportunities to debate him in the 2000s, late 2000s.
Oh, I bet you got bodied and he was drunk as fuck.
Also Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris.
Even Dawkins,
Daniel
I don't
Dennett.
know if you've seen it in the last couple of weeks.
Well, I heard you had a podcast not long ago where you were talking about how Dawkins has basically said that, religion does have some benefits to society.
Yeah.
And I think he's realizing, too, that in Britain in particular, a tepid secularism is not going to resist a radical Islam. But Christianity could be, just from a pragmatic point of view, from his point of view, can maybe blunt radical Islam. So he's realizing there's some pragmatic uses to religion. But I think originally...
Even Dawkins probably wouldn't say that that's the use of religion, is to just get them to fight. Like, Dawkins has kind of gone off the deep end, right? But he's not actually the use of religion is to get them to fight each other. I don't think like that... if I had to guess, he would probably say that there's something similar to what I would say. I'd be like, well, it provides people community. Like that's not even a controversial position.
Yeah. Like there's not really anything, in like the atheist community that's analogous to, like going to church every Sunday.
They have those humanist meetings, but then those fucking people from like the effective altruism, those people show up and fuck everything up. Or like maybe the Andrew Yang people fucking show up and give a talk, and then it's all over.
But yeah, I would also say like this isn't really a good point for him. Like saying that, you know, religion has an evolutionary use in humanity. Makes him look really bad, not good.
Right, because he's making the claim that it's useful and not that any of the writings are true or whatever.
Yeah, like religion is just useful, not based in reality.
The new atheism came out of 9/11. These fundamentalists, you know the old saying that science will teach you how to fly a plane, but religion will teach you how to fly a plane into a building, that kind of thing. And so they were...
Well, it said it didn't say that religion teaches you how to fly the plane into the building. To be fair, once you learn how to fly the plane, you can point it wherever the fuck you want. Like, it's not... it said...
Yeah.
Like, what is it? Science teaches you... It doesn't say teaches you to fly. I think science... Science allowed us to fly, and religious flew the plane. I forget that. It's so long ago, and if I see an atheist meme now that somebody tweeted out, I take a quick look at their Twitter and probably unfollow them, honestly.
Adamant against any religion, and they would put them all together. Islam, Christianity, all these religions are just basically looked at with disdain at the time. And I think people are starting to realize that's not really the way the world works. That's not really true.
I think one of the big failings actually is that a lot of the people in that movement looked at religious people with disdain. And I think that's a little bit different than looking at the institution with disdain. And I think that's one of the things I unlearned.
Yeah. I think to their point, though, it was that religion makes people do bad things. Like all religions make people do bad things.
But so does politics. Fucking
like
so does your team
regard,
winning or losing the Super Bowl, HK. You might light a bus on fire.
But what I mean is, like, you know, if you want to justify a bad thing, the Bible probably has a passage that you can interpret to justify a bad thing. Not saying that like religion is the only reason you're doing that bad thing, but religion lets you justify it to other religious people, and a lot of them might not do the bad thing until someone else says, "Oh, our religion says you should do the bad thing."
I that's a weird caricature that I no longer believe. Actually, I think what you said before is that people might use religious as like a post hoc justification for a bad thing.
Religions are different, and they're different for good reasons.
Yeah. So It's interesting because what you're describing as the Christian sort of argument as the pushback against radical Islam, I think what we have here is the pushback against wokeism.
Yes.
That people,
here we go.
what David Silverman from the American Atheist was saying, he did not realize that wokeism was going to become, I think he called it a cult, not a religion.
No, that was fucking Chris Shelton. Remember that fucking horrible episode that we watched where that guy that just left a cult, like, went on to the Trigonometry podcast and tried to call people who disagree with his politics a cult? Remember that shit?
Yep.
That's sort of what brings us to this moment in America.
Yes, and Silverman was the president of American Atheists. In fact, I had a debate with him probably 7 or 8 years ago.
Why did he become not the president of American Atheists?
But then he left that role. I don't even know what he's doing now. I mean, the whole...
Oh, he's saying racist things on YouTube, friendo.
Maybe has pretty much evaporated, really.
Yeah.
Hitchens, of course, passed away. Dawkins is starting to realize there's utility to religion from a pragmatic point of view. And I know it's going to sound odd, Dave, but I have a lot of respect for Richard Dawkins because he has more courage than many American pastors. I mean, Richard Dawkins has spoke against wokeism. Mm-hmm. Richard Dawkins has said, I'm sorry, there's only two genders, it's science, right?
Yeah.
Richard
I don't think Dawkins said that.
No, he did.
He did?
He absolutely said that.
That's crazy.
He is a bigot.
Oh, okay. I don't think...
Richard Dawkins is 100% a bigot.
I think he may have tried to say there's only two sexes. I don't think, but I don't know.
Okay, yeah. He said there's only two sexes.
We're not going down this rabbit hole, but that's also not true because it's on a spectrum. It's bimodal distribution. We all understand that. This horse is now, the flies have eaten it. That's how badly we've beaten that horse. But
he also said that if you call a trans woman a woman, that you are, and this is a direct quote of him, perverting the English language.
Well, good thing he's not a linguist because if he was, he would be the worst linguist ever because anybody who knows anything about linguistics knows that language is ever evolving and it's just, we just make it all up anyway.
Yep. Also, fuck Richard Dawkins.
Except for there was one time when he was talking to Jordan Peterson, when Jordan Peterson started word salading, and Richard Dawkins said, I think you're just saying words. And that was pretty funny.
Well, even a bigot can say a joke.
Has talked about the problems with radical Islam. Most pastors are hiding under their desks on these issues. They're not coming out and talking about this.
No, most pastors are nice people because most people are nice people. Most pastors want to serve their congregation, and their congregation is going, especially if they're in a city, is going to be a diverse group of people that a ring out from them will be an even more diverse group of people. And the pastor doesn't want to shit on the people in the congregation or their loved ones because they want people to come back.
And the Bible also literally says nothing about trans people.
So to his credit, Richard Dawkins has said some things that I wish American pastors would say.
So what's going on there? Let's dive into that a little bit, because it's not just pastors. I mean, this is happening throughout Jewish synagogues. It's happening through almost every denomination of Christianity, where the rabbis, the pastors, they're choosing wokeism. They're choosing equity over...
Yes, famously unwoke in America, the Jewish faith as an institution. They were never, ever on the forefront of any civil rights issue ever.
Religious teachings.
Right. Well,
thinking it was going to bring more people in, I think, but it seems to be doing the reverse.
Yeah, I don't know if I think Christians have bought into the idea that politics is sort of off the table for them.
Yes, American Christians never ever engaged in politics in any sort of way.
Is that
this is absolutely laughable.
Except it's not even funny.
Yeah.
Their ability to actually be Christians and live the Christian faith and preach the gospel, so to speak, is determined to a certain extent by what laws are made, right? I mean, here, we take it for granted we have religious freedom, but as you've pointed out, and many others, it's evaporating, right?
Such as?
For no other reason, Christians ought to be involved in politics is to protect the very ability to preach and live the gospel. The second reason is, I always ask Christians
Such
this,
as?
or anybody this,
in what way have we prevented Christians from living as Christians?
And when was the last president that didn't say they were a Christian? Oh, that doesn't exist.
Yep.
There's like fucking 2 or 3 people between both houses of Congress who are even just describe themselves as secular. One of them being Bernie Sanders, who, funny enough, they also gets anti-Semitism hurled at him, but he's kind of on the record saying, "Hey, I'm pretty secular. You know, I don't know if I believe any of this stuff." And it's like, what are they talking about? Like, even like running for city council, even in kind of big cities where it's largely secular, most people will say that they're Christian because they think they won't get votes otherwise.
How people are treated. Everyone.
This guy is, you know, what he means here. It's not even coded language. Like, what he's saying out loud is not being able to discriminate means that you can't preach their faith or live their faith. And it's like, no, it just means you can't be a bigot.
Well, you can.
Or at least you have to be a bigot privately.
No,
you know, if you own a business, you can't just like say, no, I'm not going to serve you because you're gay.
Or not Christian.
Although apparently you can now, so fuck the Supreme Court.
Yeah. But I mean, one of the things that we talk about all the time is that's not that you can't go out there and say dumb shit. It's that now, because of the internet, random people are going to clap back at you. And now I guess you've been canceled because somebody with 38 followers ratioed you.
Well, should Christians care how people are treated by their government? Well, yeah, that follows. Oh, now suddenly you better care about politics. You better care about the rules that are made, because if you care about people, you've got to care about what's going on. And I thankfully.
Oh, if you care about people, HK, you got to care what's going on. This guy might be dumber. No, not this guy might be Dave Rubin's intellectual counterpart, his fellow traveler. Dave's met his match.
Have been a champion for saying this transgenderism issue, particularly on children, should be off limits, and pastors even are afraid to talk about it, Dave.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I know it's crazy.
Yeah.
And
so he just said transgenderism, particularly on children, should be off limits. Okay. So he thinks that adults should not be able to be transgender.
Right.
That's what he's saying.
Particularly, well, that's not what he said, but you could easily infer that. Yeah, because he said particularly on children. Well, I mean, that's the goal of all. It always starts with you should be very skeptical when anybody with a big megaphone starts talking about how this, that, or the other group is hurting the kids, right? Because they're coming for your rights next.
Yeah, like, let's say he gets his way and Christianity takes over. Okay, then, you know, what about next when, like, a sect of Christianity that's not his takes over and they start putting his head in the guillotine?
Well, you know, that's the no true Christian.
And that's why one of the things that's been interesting for me as someone who's not Christian, and certainly a certain set of Christians might have some issues with my lifestyle and everything else, I have found generally, especially evangelical Christians, to be the most welcoming, decent people out there, which did help.
Yeah, that's because you won't hold your husband Dave's hand at dinner in front of them.
Really, Dave Rubin? Really? You found them the most welcoming? Well, have you read the comments online about you?
When he was going to have, when he went to adopt a kid, his fucking comments were mayhem.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, those are the little people. The people higher up, like in like sort of fundamentalist political Christianity, they probably find him rather useful, and so they're nice to him. You know what I'm saying?
They may be nice to him, but they still vilify him publicly. And, you know, he should be a man and not take that.
I think evolve in some ways in my thinking.
Sorry, that was a gender role. A woman shouldn't take that either. No one should take that.
4 years ago, that dialogue you had with my friend John Lennox and Justin Brierley.
Yeah.
Lennox.
That was a great event.
If every Christian was like John Lennox, the whole world would be Christianized, because you can't not like John Lennox,
he's
right?
Just a fun guy, smiling,
right?
He's telling you this and jokey. And,
He's like your favorite uncle who has all these great stories, and John is just one of the guys I look up to in my field of work, because he is just so affable yet so intelligent. I mean, he's a PhD in mathematics and philosophy. He's amazing.
So
that's a guy you probably don't want to talk to at the dinner party.
I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. I think from an American sort of broad cultural perspective, most people, it's not that they're atheists, but they just sort of don't know what they believe. We have just sort of a set of things that we kind of wake up to every day, a culture war, a political fire, and then that's kind of what they believe in, the thing that's happening sort of every day at the moment. And I think that sort of leads...
You know, if you don't know whether you believe in God, then you don't believe in God, and you're just the default, which is atheist.
Or or a lot of people would say agnostic because they don't understand that you're probably, most atheists are also agnostic. But also, like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with people walking around and not thinking too much about like religion and just living their lives and reading the news and caring about their community and caring about who they vote for. And so I don't, like, why, like, what the fuck's the problem with that?
Yeah.
Like, what if you ask somebody about religion, they're like, I don't know. And then you go, okay, cool, we'll talk about something else. That's the cool person at the dinner party. I'm like, I don't know, you have any weed?
Degree of craziness. So how would you unfurl, if you think that's a fair premise, how would you kind of unfurl people out of that?
Well, there's two questions that need to be answered. Does God exist? And if so, what has he said? Those are the two big questions.
All right, let's do it.
Right? Okay.
Let's go.
So does God exist?
The answers are, I don't know and I don't care. Boom. I answered your big questions now.
The answers are there's no evidence for it, so
even
no one knows.
Probably not, and I don't care.
Yeah.
I think when somebody asks me, how do I know God exists? I say I know God by his effects. If there's a creation, and there is, this universe had a beginning, as even atheists are admitting, then there has to be a creator.
I don't know that.
That's false.
Maybe it was just always here. Fuck if I know, man.
Yeah, that's false.
And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time worrying about that shit either, because I'm never going to find the answer.
Even if it began to exist, like, why does there have to be a creator? And especially, why would that creator have to be sentient? Like a complex sentient being?
And then
ridiculous.
If the universe didn't exist, then where the fuck was that creator? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, well, the universe is just everything. Well, then where the fuck was the thing that created the universe? I don't fucking know. If somebody was like, you going to wager a guess on this? I'd be like, it's probably just eternal. You can't really, space is probably just always here. I don't know. Like, but if I spend 1 minute a month thinking about that outside of the context of having to talk about it when someone else talks about it on this show, that's a minute too many. Because there's just so much more for you to think about than how long has the universe been here? It's been here at least 13 trillion years, because that's when Xenu fucking flew the DC-8. So
is the effect.
It's been here for at least 30 seconds, because that's when I started to realize that it was right now.
Well, they wouldn't say miracle, but they would say just this thing happened, this causeless thing happened.
They will say that, but it seems to me that if space-time and matter had a beginning, the only thing that could have caused that is something that transcends space-time and matter.
So something that doesn't exist. Like, but he says, if space-time and matter had a beginning, what if I don't know that that's the truth?
Like, even that is wrong. Like, space-time and matter could have come to being themselves. Like, I know it's a weird concept, but like, they could have essentially created themselves. Like, space can kind of just create itself out of nothing. That could have happened.
Space
like, why,
just nothing?
Space is not nothing. It would be hard to describe nothing.
Well, anyway, like we're not doing this. What I'm saying is that we don't know. The universe could be fucking eternal, and people cannot. I can't fathom eternity, right? You can't fathom eternity, so people don't want that as the answer, because then the answer is something that is unfathomable. That's why people don't want the answer.
Yeah. But like, more importantly here is, if you're ascribing this this property to God, that he can extend back infinitely far into the past, then why can't you ascribe that property to the universe? Like, what what is it that causes you to say, no, that property can't be, that property can't exist on the universe?
Because the universe is, we can observe it. And so people, I'm telling you, people can't fathom eternity. And instead of being like, oh, okay, well, I guess, maybe it was always here and I'm going to stop thinking about that, which is like what I do, because I don't fucking know. Like, people then waste their time, I think, trying to determine how the universe got here. And I just feel like that's a pointless pursuit, because you're never going to get the answer.
Well, what we do know is that the universe as it exists now began to exist in the Big Bang.
We don't know that.
That's pretty well proven.
If you say so. I think the Big Bang is just another creation myth.
We can see pretty much like right after the Big Bang, like the light from it. So, I mean, to the extent that like you can look at something and you believe that exists because you're seeing it, then we can look at it and we believe it exists because we see it. We can see not the Big Bang itself, but right after the Big Bang.
If you say so.
In other words,
it's called the cosmic microwave background radiation. You can look it up.
Material, powerful to create the universe out of nothing, personal in order to choose to create, because impersonal forces don't make choices. Only a person can make a choice to go from nothingness to...
Wait, no, a cat can make a choice to go in the other room.
You would also have to be intelligent to have a mind to make a choice.
But like, why does nothingness need to make a choice to become something? Why is that a prerequisite for nothing to turn into something?
Personal, intelligent cause. Who do you think of? And most people say God, but then they'll say, well, how do you know it's the Christian God? And the answer is, we don't know if it's the Christian God unless, because this
probably
God
the flying spaghetti
some
monster,
other theistic God, right? Unless Jesus rose from the dead. And if you can discover that Jesus really did rise from the dead, then we can say that the same...
Maybe he wasn't dead and they just buried him.
Even if he did rise from the dead, that doesn't mean he's
years ago
from God or of God. It means he's really powerful. He's a necromancer.
Zombie.
So you don't get all the way to Jesus from one argument. But if you can show that the universe had a beginning,
you can't.
Had a beginner with those attributes, and you can see that Jesus rose from the dead, then you can show.
If I was a necromancer, I could probably start my own religion.
Yeah, feel free to make a couple others.
Okay.
Why don't we go through a couple others?
Yeah, the second is the teleological or the design argument, which is so incredibly difficult to explain from an atheistic perspective that even Christopher Hitchens said, I don't know how to explain this one, right?
Yeah.
For example,
but to be fair, he was like a handle of scotch in.
Gravitational force, if it were altered by more than 1 in 10 to the 40th power, that's 1 part in 1 with 40 zeros following it, we wouldn't exist. And an illustration
but something would exist.
Is this: if you were to take the entire North American continent from Central America all the way to Greenland, stack it in dimes to the moon, 238,000 miles, then do that on 1 billion other North American continents. Take all those dimes, put them in one pile, mark one dime red, mix it in, blindfold a friend, throw him on the pile, say pick one dime. The chances he would pick that one red dime.
I'd just start making rolls of dimes and taking that shit to the bank. Fuck that.
Chance in 10 to the 40th power.
It'd take a while, but I'd be a millionaire.
What the fuck is he talking about? Like, so
the implication here is,
let's say there is some sort of like constant that is actually like that important. So first of all, if it was something else, there might be other people here talking about, oh, isn't it so great that our universe just happened to land on this thing? And instead, we wouldn't be here, they'd be here talking about this. So it could be chance, or it could be that constant has to have that value. That for some reason, the way the universe exists, that constant can't be another value. And we just don't know.
That's the one at the end. We just don't know. That's it. Then people, I'm telling you, people are just terrified of that. People just don't want that.
Yes. He is very terrified of not knowing. That is correct. Frank Turek is absolutely terrified of not knowing the answer.
And this is just one of several factors about the universe. Change any one of them, we're not here. Is that what best explains that?
Yeah, but something else is. Like, why is that? Like, why could it not be chance?
Also, this is just straight up the argument from ignorance. This is like you know what I'm saying? This is like, well, what if something else? It's what if something else changed and it would make it so we weren't here? It's like, okay,
yeah.
Like, what if things didn't happen in such a way that this planet got here? Well, then I guess we wouldn't be here, would we, motherfucker? Okay, you're a genius. Thank you. Like, good job, buddy.
Yeah, and maybe something else would be here.
Right. Like nothing, or space, or like an asteroid.
Like, what if Mars was as big as Earth is instead, and Earth was the size of Mars? Like, maybe we'd all be fucking Martians.
What if this was just a teacup orbiting the sun?
Or design. I mean, either this value was designed or it wasn't. And it seems, if we're going to be rational, we have to say it's designed. And
thanks. Thanks for solving the problem for me.
Of the design argument. Then when you get
if we're going to be rational, you're going to come to the same conclusion I came to. Fucking bravo. I try so hard to not say shit like that, and I'm just some dumb guy who probably drinks too much on stream.
Well, clearly you're not on Frank Turek's level.
This guy and I would have a 5-minute conversation. I would interview him. I'd be like,
you'd last 5 minutes.
I'd be like, I gotta go. This is fucking insufferable.
No, you guys would have a 45-second conversation.
Biology, and you see that in every one of your 100 trillion cells, there's a software program 3.5 billion letters long. I mean, if we were to go out to the beach.
Okay, hold on. Now, this is insulting. This is really insulting. I write software.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I'm a person with
cells. If I wrote software the way that DNA works, first of all, I'd have been fired from my first job because DNA would be shit software. Like most of it, the vast majority of it does nothing.
Or it does nothing that we can determine at this time.
A whole lot of it does absolutely nothing.
All right. Well, I'm not
completely change it.
Apparently, I'm not the one here who is the DNA expert. So go ahead.
You can change it. You can snip it out. Won't make a difference. And that's a good thing because that's where a lot of the things that do stuff come from.
So it does something. It just isn't expressing it. So yeah. That's fine. Neither of us have the required expertise in this field to like have this conversation.
Like, imagine you have a hard drive,
or we're just going to keep having this conversation. That's fine too. Go ahead.
Imagine you have a hard drive that's 20 terabytes, and 18 terabytes of it is taken up with junk,
pornography.
All right, 18 terabytes of porn, and then like 2 terabytes of business stuff.
Spreadsheets.
Yep. Spreadsheets mostly about the porn.
Dave, and we're walking along Miami Beach and it says, John loves Mary in the sand. We wouldn't go, oh, the waves did that. Or, or crabs came out of the water and made that message. No, we'd say that message had to come from a mind. Well, what happens when we...
Yeah, but like you look at a bismuth crystal. Like everyone go Google an image of a bismuth crystal, and it looks like a person made it. It's got all these crazy geometric shapes, and it looks like an Escher painting. It's super cool, and it's like, what's that?
A tessellation. I don't know. Anyway, we're not going to get into what a tessellation is. Go ahead.
So yeah, and it's got all these cool iridescent colors. It looks like a person made it, but a person didn't make it.
But also, he's talking about somebody drawing some shit in the sand, and we are like, well, if we would have had a camera pointed at the sand at that point, we would have seen somebody's finger. You dumb fuck.
Like, it is hard to determine what is created by, like, a human or like a conscious mind trying to create something, and what's created by like just the way nature works. Nature reacts according to mathematical rules. Like there's a reason that like plants have like a specific degree between their leaves. Not all plants, but there's like this one plant that I'm thinking of where like its leaves grow like 127 degrees apart or something.
That would mean it's just because like 1 or 2 leaves.
Like that's the mathematically the best thing, so that's how it evolved. So like there's a lot of things that look like they're created but aren't, just because nature works based on math.
5 billion letters long in every one of our 100 trillion cells. If John Loves Mary requires a mind, doesn't a message 3.5 billion letters long require a mind?
But it's not a message.
Yes. DNA is not a message.
That's an effect that needs a cause, like God. And then, of course, the third argument that we often talk about, which is probably most germane to the topics you talk about, is the moral argument. Because if there's no God, everything's just a matter of opinion. There's no standard beyond us, no transcendent standard of righteousness that we're obligated to obey.
Mm-hmm. But there are like animals that have well, then why doesn't every ant just kill the other ant in the ant colony? They're not even conscious and they don't kill each other. You know, I mean, there may be like power struggles for like who's going to be the queen or whatever. I don't even know that much about ants, but they mostly just operate in concert for the benefit of the colony. And I could guarantee you they don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I mean, I don't either, but an ant probably can't even really hear what you're saying, friendo. So like that, you just think about any like animal that lives in any kind of like communal situation. They operate in a certain way for the benefit of their community for the most part. Otherwise, the community wouldn't have survived. Like this is all incredibly dumb.
Then there's no difference between Mother Teresa and Hitler from a moral perspective.
I mean, Mother Teresa wasn't that great, actually, dude, but okay.
Your opinion against
the distance between the two is a lot smaller than he thinks.
Probably carries the most weight with people today.
Right. So is that the one you think that maybe led us to so much of the craziness today when we're debating, as my friend Douglas Murray often says, things that we've put to bed years ago and suddenly we're debating, you know, whether boys are girls or girls are boys. It's because we have sort of no moral basis anymore at scale in society.
Yeah.
Why is that a moral question?
The very people that are arguing for that are arguing as if there's a moral right to do this, you notice. Because
no, I don't even know if it's a moral right. It's just there's a none of my fucking business right for other people to do that, actually.
Yeah. Like why would it be immoral? Like if I wear a dress, is that immoral?
I don't know. Do you look good in the dress? Oh wait, no, that's not even the right question. That's an immoral question.
The question is whose moral position?
I look pretty terrible in a dress.
Legislate morality. The only question is whose morality. And what I try and say to people is,
my body was not built for wearing dresses.
I want to legislate your morality. I want to legislate the morality, the one Thomas Jefferson said.
What kind of dress? The sexiest
that self-evident morality upon which this nation was found is the morality we ought to get back to.
You mean the part in the First Amendment where they fucking said that Congress shall enact no law establishing respecting the establishment of a religion, and there shall be no religious test to hold office? Is that the founding thing, or is that's the one they don't like?
Were inconsistent.
That is the one they don't like.
On slavery and other issues, they were inconsistent, but they knew in their hearts. In fact, Jefferson and the founding fathers knew that slavery was going to be an issue, that it wasn't morally right. They just couldn't figure out how to get rid of it at the time.
Boy, then why did they own slaves?
Yeah. Oh, this isn't morally right, and we can't really figure out how to get rid of it. Well, no, you're founding a country. You're making the first laws of the country. You could have put that first. I'd have been fine with the Second Amendment being about religion and freedom of speech. Be like, no owning other human beings as property. They could have just put it first.
That seems pretty fucking important.
Right. They could have just put it first. So
people all the time. He was writing the documents to free the slaves.
Although that is evidence in favor of his argument that we were based on Christianity, because if you read the Bible, the Christian Bible, it does have rules about how to treat your slaves and who you can enslave. You know, who God says, yeah, you can go ahead and enslave those people.
That's right. He was just a man of his time, as incredible as he was. What would you say to the line? One of the things that I think shifted me on a lot of this, Jordan Peterson, when we toured together, it would come up literally every single night. People would say, please define God, explain God. How did you become a believer? And the short answer, he really didn't like that question, not because...
The short answer was Jordan Peterson never gave a short answer.
It was valuable, but because it was just coming up all the time,
right.
and he felt that there's so many other things to talk about and everything else. But the simplest version of it would be that he behaves as if God exists. That's what he would say. And I thought that was pretty solid.
Yeah, because he believes in God.
For most people. Do you think that's fair?
Well, the question
that he can't sit there and tell you, okay, God exists, but he will behave in such a way that will...
Right. I think Jordan takes more of a utilitarian approach to God, that whether he exists or not, we better believe in him. Because if we don't...
But that's just Pascal's wager, you idiot.
As Dostoevsky said, if there is no God, everything's permissible, right? Yeah. It's going to be chaos, as Nietzsche pointed out. However, I think there's evidence that God exists, and I think you can show beyond a reasonable doubt, not beyond all doubt, I could be wrong, right?
Oh, that's good.
But I think that God does exist. And if Jesus rose from the dead, and I think we can give evidence that he did, then the Christian God is the true God. So if that's the case, who is God?
But he keeps saying if, this is just like, these arguments are all like presuppositional. You have to presuppose that he's right, and then, oh shit, he's right. You presuppose that everything I say here is right, then I'm always right. Like,
yep.
What a dumb way to talk about anything. Let's take like whether or not Jesus rose from the dead off the table. What like a stupid way to talk about anything.
But Dave, he titled his book, "I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist."
Well, that's great. I don't believe in God, and I don't want this idiot on my team or whatever, to the extent that like not collecting stamps is a team. That's my hobby. I don't collect stamps. That's why I fucking got bored with atheism. I was like, wait a minute. This isn't a belief system.
God, in the abstract, is spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal, and intelligent.
That's not what it says in the Bible.
Jesus. He adds
in the Bible, he's walking around in the Garden of Eden going, Adam, Adam, where are you?
Some sort of new moral code.
Adam.
But to be our substitute. He is the one that lives the perfect life in our place. So by trusting in him, we can have our moral transgressions forgiven, and we can be given his
that's convenient.
So Christianity, contrary to what many will say, is not a system that tries to get you to live better. Christianity is a system that tries to get you to accept the substitute, and because you do accept the substitute,
Christianity doesn't tell you to be a better person. It actually says, I just substitute Christianity for being a good person. Like, that's what he just said. Like, what a dumb thing. Like, I don't want that belief system to be popular. In that belief system, everything's permissible, because then you just fucking repent and then you go to heaven. That's not what most Christians believe, by the way.
That is the loophole.
Out of gratitude for what he's done for you, then you will live a moral life. So it's a result, in other words.
So what would the role of, in your perfect world, what would the role of Christianity be in, say, the United States?
It would just run the government.
Well, I believe in freedom of religion, and I think God does too. Otherwise, he'd be pestering us all the time, right? He gives us enough freedom in order to go our own way. So I think we have freedom.
His version of giving us enough freedom is just not existing.
We're just not pestering us. You know, do you think God's pestering you? You actually should go talk to somebody about that.
Religion, and I would not want any sort of theocratic government. But I think what people confuse, Dave, on this issue is, I just remember, I'll bring up a name from the past. Remember,
he absolutely wants theocratic government, though. He literally just talked about.
You're writing fanfic about him. He hasn't said that. He just said the opposite. Unless you can point to.
He hasn't said
it. Okay, then that's what he believes because you say so.
He described it, and he described it as what he wants.
I just remember, I'll bring up a name from the past. Remember old Chris Matthews?
Of course.
Yeah.
He was,
Chris always
before MSNBC went completely insane.
That's right.
He was like...
That was back when Dave went on MSNBC, before it went completely bonkers.
That's right. He used to say, we can't set up some sort of theocracy. And I would say, Chris...
So the government that he described is where
at
the
what
Christians...
point did he describe a government in this video?
Earlier when he was talking about whether it should be illegal to be trans.
Oh, but there are tons of atheists who think that too.
Sure. But he described a government where the Christians get to decide what is moral and immoral, and whatever the Christians decide is immoral becomes illegal. That's the government that he described. That is a theocracy.
To worship. We're not telling them they have to be a certain religion. That would be establishing a religion. But we can't avoid telling people how they ought to treat one another. And that's legislating morality. And everybody's trying to do that. I mean,
it's what the wokesters are doing.
Yes.
Right now. That was your point.
That's what he's trying to do, though.
The only question is, whose morality? So I think, and I'll part with some of my Christian friends here, this country was not founded on Christianity.
Oh.
It was founded on the moral law consistent with Christianity.
No, that's convenient.
Jefferson says we hold these truths to be self-evident.
Not consistent with the Bible.
What he wanted to do was have a new government that wasn't completely relativistic and have no God. But he didn't want a government like they came from England that said, you got to be a member of the Church of England.
Right.
He wanted to have the best of both worlds, religious freedom, but also moral absolutes that come from God. So he said, we're going to establish
So the sentence he said there, we hold these truths to be self-evident, isn't that the Declaration of Independence?
Yeah, that's not the law. They do this all the time. They conflate the Declaration of Independence with the Constitution all the time. The Declaration of Independence is just probably the world's most famous Dear John letter.
Yeah, the Constitution starts like we the people in order to form a more perfect union, right?
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying is they don't understand that one is the Dear John letter. The next one is like the rules for the new house.
Yeah. And that one, the one that actually counts, isn't talking about God.
God's nature. That moral law, we know, comes from the same God that wrote the Bible or inspired the Bible, but you don't have to be a Christian to know it. You don't have to be a Christian to be a citizen here. This nation is open to everyone. That's the kind of government I think we ought to have.
Is that the brilliance of the
But according to him, you have to follow their rules.
Else, because that there again, when I quote this line about Douglas Murray, that we're debating things that shouldn't be debated anymore.
Yeah.
It seems to me we're in this odd spot right now where culturally nothing's self-evident anymore. There's nothing that's just settled. What is settled anymore? Nothing. Was JFK assassinated? Did we go to the moon? Our boys, girls, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh yeah,
wait, what?
In that regard, and
we're just going to pretend we didn't hear that.
Is what happens, to use a biblical phrase, that when you suppress the truth long enough, God gives you up to a depraved mind. I mean, to the point where you don't even know there's the difference between boys and girls. By the way, transgenderism presupposes men and women. Because if I'm a man and I think I'm a woman, I have to have some idea what a man is and some idea what a woman is to know I have this mismatch between my psychology and my biology. If there weren't fixed genders, I wouldn't be able to know that. Also,
wait, no. Oh, no. These people are living in a society where people believe that these are your two kind of archetypes, and they don't. They're what someone's saying the archetype they need to subscribe to doesn't match with the archetype that they believe or that they are, basically. That's where the rub is. The rub isn't sure, I guess you presuppose these two archetypes, but that it's a rejection of that presupposition of these two archetypes. That's what like gender studies is.
He's almost there, though. He has almost realized that gender is a social construct.
Try and make the so-called transition, I have to have some idea what a man is and some idea what a woman is in order to make the transition. So on one hand, they're trying to say,
and who taught you who a man and who a woman is?
It would be impossible. Transgenderism would be impossible if there weren't fixed genders.
You know, it's interesting because one of the things I've been talking about on the show is when it's the same argument. I've made it a slightly different way, which is that with kids, they're taking a young boy who maybe likes the color pink or Barbie. On one hand, they're telling you none of this matters. And on the other hand, they're saying, oh, he likes pink and Barbie, thus he must be a girl.
That's right.
So it's
is that what they're doing?
I like pink and Barbie.
While it's also saying it's the most tolerant and diverse and everything else, which I suppose
is anyone saying that I'm a girl because I like pink and Barbie?
It is. It's when you move away from God, even just say a generic God, the God of right and wrong. When you move away from that, God's a gentleman. He gives up
God's a gentleman
eventually.
But in your book, he flooded the whole earth. That's not very gentlemanly.
He literally killed everyone.
He says, I know you don't want me, so I'm going to pull myself away. God is not going to force you into his presence against your will. And from a theological perspective, that's what hell is. Hell is separation from God because God will not force you into his presence against your will. I always say, if you don't want God now, you're not going to want him in eternity. Why would he say, you're with me now in eternity? No. He's going to
Even if I was a god and I was like, oh, these people didn't believe in me, that's fine. Come on, come to the party anyway. You're invited to the party anyway. Come to the barbecue.
Why would he, if you didn't like him on earth, why would he invite you into heaven? Instead, he's going to torture you forever.
Yeah, if I was a god, I'd just be like, nah, it's fine. You come to the barbecue.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would be. If I were a god, I'd be like, no, Frank, you can go.
Well, Frank, you can come to the barbecue, but what I want you to do is mostly leave people alone. Just kind of cool it a little bit, Frank. Cool your jets a little bit. There's like nice people here. Let's just have a good time.
Just have like a separate heaven that's just for all the people like Frank.
I don't know. I don't know if I want to start doing that if I'm a god. That gets dicey.
And the worst place you can be is separated from God, because he is the source of all love. He is the source of all goodness. He is the standard. I mean, you've been talking about this. You've been talking about there's got to be some sort of transcendence out there.
There has to be something beyond this.
That's right.
Wait, why?
Just this.
Why does there have to be something beyond this?
I know that much.
And maybe that's part of the reason, going back to your original question, Dave, that the new atheism has faded away, because people know there's something transcendent. We're not just molecular machines. We're not just moist robots.
I think now might be a decent time to like talk a little bit about why this movement faded away. Depending on how you slice and dice different forms of Christianity, non-believers might be the top religious group. If you just put all Christians into one, they're still the top. But you start going, you just start to go Catholic, Protestant. Now you have a different. Now you get a different. Like now it's. I don't know if that's the case that non-believers are number one, but they might be number two in that case. And so maybe it just fizzled out because enough people like kind of lost their religion or whatever that it sort of like it became useless. And also like elevator gate, that too. Elevator gate.
Yeah, mostly shitty spokespeople.
Yeah.
That's why the movement itself died, but the popularity of atheism didn't die.
Right. Well, people don't want to like call themselves that, but if you drill down, people will just say, "Oh, I'm non-religious." Well, that just probably means they're atheist. But like, who fucking cares? Like, I think the who fucking cares group is actually getting bigger and bigger, even among people who believe in God. The who fucking cares group has got to be getting bigger. And I think and so you don't really need this strident atheism anymore, when even a lot of like people who are like go to church or whatever just don't give a shit what your religion is anymore. Like, what's the point of this fucking strident atheist movement? Oh, also a lot of them joined Gamergate.
Yeah.
Right. And if we are moist robots, why should we believe atheism's true? We shouldn't believe our thoughts, because our thoughts are completely driven by the laws of physics, according to them.
That's not what every atheist believes, but I ascribe to some version of that, sure.
The main atheistic view now.
That's essentially what I believe. I think we're meat robots. There's nothing wrong with being a meat robot.
Said moist robots, which is troubling.
An NYU professor wrote
we're moist meat robots.
Called Mind and Cosmos, where he said, even though he's an atheist, he said,
currently my meat is moist.
He said something like,
oh God, that's a weird sentence to say.
Materialistic viewpoint of the world is almost certainly false.
When I die, I will desiccate and eventually turn into just bone.
Because he's essentially saying, look, I know there's something transcendent out there. I'm an atheist. I don't know how to explain it. But materialism isn't the answer. Materialism makes us moist robots. Why should anyone listen to me? Why should I listen to myself?
Well, it's just not that fun. It's not that sellable. I think that's part of it.
Oh, it's super fun. It's great being a moist robot.
I don't know if you saw it, but I got into a bit.
You can hang out with other moist robots.
Taking the believer side with Bill Maher.
Do moist robot things together.
Not too long ago, and it just struck me as, you don't believe in anything sort of magical. It's like that's such a fundamental part.
Like baseball. That's a really good moist robot thing to do together.
Could whittle this down into the firm belief in Christianity or any other religion that the need to believe is just innate to humans.
Yes, and
you will believe
to some of us, sure, but some of us don't need to believe, because I don't need to believe in the transcendent. Otherwise, I would. Like, this is dumb. Like, what do you mean we just need to believe in magic, basically? No, I don't believe in magic. I believe in magicians, and a good magician is probably better than a good comedian, actually. Probably have more laughs at a good magic show. But that's different than what they're talking about here. Like, what do you mean? Like, some people, yeah, I guess that's sort of in their psychology or whatever, that they have to believe in the transcendent. And some people, they don't. And that's fine, actually. That's okay with me.
and you've mentioned this, and Jordan Peterson has mentioned this, everybody has some kind of God. There's a hierarchy of values, and there's something at the top of all of our priority lists.
So what would you say? So you mentioned you've debated Christopher Hitchens on this. When you look.
Oh wait, he's talking about like what we need.
Yeah, housing.
I'd say water first. Is water my God?
The people.
I guess that would make sense for a moist robot to consider water its God. Okay, yeah, that checks out.
He thought that God didn't play dice with the universe, was the famous line. But when you look at the people that were sort of not religious...
I was God, I'd be playing dice all the time. I ain't shit else to do.
Somewhat separated from belief, but clearly lived good, inquisitive, interesting lives.
In fact, I'd always win.
Do harm, as far as I can tell, something like that.
I control the dice.
What would you say about that sort of character, that person?
Well, I certainly have always said, and I said this to Hitchens several times, when I said, Christopher, I'm not saying that since you're an atheist, you can't do good things. I'm not saying you don't know what right and wrong is. Everybody does. What I'm saying is you can't justify what right and wrong is. You can't.
You have to determine that for yourself.
You can do it, but you can't justify why it's good. If there's no God, it's just your opinion. I sometimes give an analogy. I notice there's a lot of speed limit signs around here in Miami.
Have you seen just in Miami?
We have a lot of different cultures here. It's a real thing.
And there's cameras everywhere.
We have a lot of different cultures, so there's speed limit signs. I can't fucking believe this.
You can go outside and see speed limit 35 miles an hour, and you can obey that speed limit.
Everybody's doing 45.
While you deny there's a traffic authority. But there would be no speed limit sign unless there was a traffic authority. The same thing is true with God. You can know that, say, murder's wrong and deny there's a God. And you can not murder, do good things, and deny there's a God. But it wouldn't be wrong.
So murder is wrong to me, but is murder wrong to a spider?
Yeah.
Like if a spider kills another spider, does Frank think that spider should be imprisoned for the rest of its life?
That'd be pretty cool if spiders actually organized like a tyrannical government of some sort.
Objective point of view, unless
It'd be
there was
scary.
So,
and what would Hitch's answer have been on that, or what was?
Well, Hitch was so rhetorically gifted, he would never directly answer a question.
Well, no, your question is stupid.
Look, I don't try and judge my own debates, but I will say that
that means you got creamed by a drunk guy.
The first debate I ever had, other than with my wife, which I lose repeatedly, but the first debate I ever had was against Christopher Hitchens, and.
Maybe you should have worked your way up the ladder a little bit there, friendo.
The debate, literally, Dave, I was sitting there going, I like this guy. I didn't even know what he was talking about.
Did he share his scotch with you?
But just his accent and his wit.
Great way about him.
He was just fabulous, and I'm kind of daydreaming going, I really like this guy. And I think people...
And he's like, but also he's in hell.
The debate, they're doing the same thing. But if you look at the transcript of the debate and you're reading it, you're going, what's he talking about? This has nothing to do with even the topic. The first debate was called Does God Exist? So I got up and I tried to give some of the arguments we already mentioned. You know what he got up and started doing? He started talking about how Mother Teresa was a bad person.
Good fuck yeah, Hitch.
What does this have to do with whether or not God exists? Mother Teresa may have been good or bad. That's not the point.
Yo, he had drank like a bottle of scotch before you talked to him, dude. And I'm not talking 750 milliliter. I'm talking fucking 1.75 liters, dude. He was wasted.
What about God? And he just never engaged on those issues.
Unfortunately, he's not here, so we can't fully rehash it. But would you say that the flaw, if he and some of these other people I mentioned lived roughly decent lives and everything else, would you say that the flaw is more functional in that it just can't scale?
What do you mean by that?
That it can't, so it can work for sort of very individual people. I have no doubt that you believe that an individual atheist could live a perfectly moral and good life.
Not perfectly. None of us.
Okay, so within the constructs of being a human being, you could live a fairly moral and decent life. And
so wait, if like let's say a baby was like born and then like 2 minutes later it died, does Frank think that the baby was a sinner? Like, what did the baby do in its lifetime?
I mean, it went and died.
Like, it lasted all of 2 minutes and it somehow managed to sin in that time?
Sort of can't scale over time. It just doesn't give you enough for
it puked on somebody and then died
to live in some sort of functional way.
I know it's going to sound...
And I think that's sort of why this American atheist thing collapsed. And why
Sure.
No. It collapsed because the fucking head of it. It didn't collapse. The organization still exists, but Dave Silverman had to leave because of his behavior, Dave. Not because of his belief system, unless his belief system was it's totally okay to allegedly sexually assault someone.
But I know it's going to sound odd, but I don't think the purpose of life is to live a moral life. I think the purpose of life is to know God and make him known. And if you do that, you will live a moral life.
That's very sad that he thinks that's the purpose of life.
It is not the cause.
That's like an incredibly sad thing to me.
And if God is God, which means he's infinitely just, I've been unjust in my life even today, just coming over here. How many people did I cut off because I was late, right? Okay.
I feel like I've been subjected to an injustice watching this.
At the judgment, I'm in trouble. And so I need somebody to cover my sin, somebody to pay for my sin. An unpopular word in today's culture, but it's transgression against God.
Counterpoint, what if you just die and it's exactly like it was before you were born?
Other people. Mm-hmm. I've done that. I do it all the time.
Also, like, why is it okay for someone else to pay for your sins? Like, I've never understood that about Christianity, where like their whole like gimmick is like, oh, Jesus died to pay for your sins. Like, okay, well,
I think it's pretty simple.
Why?
I think it's pretty simple. Nobody's perfect. Everybody does shit that's wrong. Everybody's afraid to die, and so like it's nice to tell people that someone else is going to pay for their transgressions so that they're less afraid to die.
But isn't that immoral?
It depends. If you're talking about what are someone's transgressions? Are you talking about cutting someone off on the freeway? Well, maybe you shouldn't be tortured for eternity for that. Like, it just depends. Like, most people don't do horrific things. And so the point, like, I don't share the view, but I like see why, like it would be a thing that you would tell people. It's like, well, no, actually, God isn't up there judging your every move.
To me, punishing someone for the deeds of someone else is immoral.
Right, but that's fine. That's fine with me that they believe that, because I don't believe that happened.
But they do believe that happened, and they believe that God is super moral. So I don't understand.
I also don't think that most Christians actually believe all this shit, like in a very literal way. Like, I think this guy is at least suggesting that he does.
I hope they don't, because it doesn't make sense.
Somebody to cover my sin. That's why Jesus came. The Son of Man did not come to be served.
He came because he was hanging out with sex workers.
To give his life as a ransom for many. And this is the only religion in the world, Dave, that actually is built on grace rather than works. In other words,
I like the other religions.
Yeah, isn't that a bad thing?
He just gives it to you.
Like, this is the only... Hey, everyone, come to my religion. It's the only one where Hitler can be in heaven.
Oh, the other thing is, earlier he was saying basically that he was talking about sin earlier and that you shouldn't sin. But then, like, what about the transes? What if they just repent? Now heaven's full of trans people. What are you going to do? What are you going to do up there? They already got the fucking mulligan, friendo. What now? Like,
oh, God. Could you imagine, like, Frank Turp going up to God and being like, I have a complaint. I was under the impression that I would get here and everyone would be straight and cis.
And then God
didn't read the book.
Then God plays him back the times where he said all these times where no matter what you did, you can get saved. God's like, I don't know, man. You seemed to fucking agree with it when you were down there. It was actually kind of your shtick. You want to go to the other place?
Send him anyway. Just send him anyway.
Then you live a life out of gratitude to him that will live in a moral way. You will live in a moral way. That's the...
So connected to that, how much of what you think is happening sort of culturally in America?
What does he mean by live in a moral way? I wonder what that means.
12 days in Israel.
Yes.
And went, to all of the holy sites and went to the Church of Holy Sepulchre and went to the
you did some college work there, didn't you? In the Negev?
It means straight and cis. That's what he means by that.
But one of the things that struck me was that the story, it was very clear, especially being in Jerusalem for about 5 days, that, they're digging down and excavating and uncovering history, and then they're also building up. I mean, the city is just absolutely flourishing. It was amazing. But what I kept thinking was people don't know history, and because they don't know history, they can't even connect any of the philosophic underpinnings. So we just sort of all walk around spinning all day long, and we need to know history to know some of this stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And from we go to Israel every year. We bring a group to Israel. In fact, Eli Shukran, who is the archaeologist who discovered the Pool of Siloam and excavated most of it.
Well, we went down there. It's being excavated right now. Right?
Yeah, well, he excavated it back in 2004, and that church there, believe it or not.
Wait, I thought it's, which one?
They wanted to continue the excavation, and somehow they just got approval last year to finish it.
Huh.
And so Eli, who was the guy who originally discovered it, is normally our tour guide when we go. We're going to go in November again, and he discovered that. He also discovered what might be, and this is an amazing discovery if it's true. I've seen it myself.
Big if true.
He thinks he has found a standing stone in the city of David, which goes all the way back potentially to Melchizedek. Now, this is Abraham's time. So this is 2000 BC. And that's right there in the city of David. This is 1,000 years before David. So he's an amazing archaeologist. And there's no question this was the Jewish homeland long before anybody else ever got there, other than the Canaanites who were there, prior to them.
Right.
But,
So this whole political argument,
you first after
I
me.
think, is just overcome by archaeology.
When you're down there so we did the walk through the city of David, and and they're excavating it now. You can go basically from the pool all the way up to what would have been the temple.
Eli excavated that too. Yeah.
Right. So when you're,
but they're excavating it now.
Are most of the archaeologists believers, or are they more purely people of science?
Eli is certainly a believer in Yahweh. He's a Orthodox Jewish believer. I don't know. I can't speak for the others. I just know Eli personally. But there are Americans, as you know, that go over there quite a bit.
So I think we may actually save ourselves from the rest of this. I think they do this thing, right? They're like, well, are most of the archaeologists believers in a higher power? And that's a different question. And do the conclusions from the field of archaeology match up with what the holy books say, right? Those are two different questions. And a lot of times you get the conflation of those. Like, I actually don't care what religion somebody who's doing, good scientific or, archaeological or anthropological work. Like, I don't care what religion they are, or none at all, right? Are they doing good work? Great, they're doing good work. They go to fucking church on Sunday, fucking go to the mosque, the synagogue. I don't give a shit, because so many people in the sciences who are religious just compartmentalize their work and their faith. And that's fine.
Yeah, if you can do your work without letting your religion interfere with it, then your religion's not a problem.
And you're probably great at your job.
Yeah.
All right. I have no more final thoughts. This was awful. We're not watching. I will never ever watch another religious apologist on this, because first of all, you and I end up talking past each other, and you and I end up talking past each other, and I don't know. That's my least favorite thing. But also another reason, that shit's hella boring, and I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck. Like, I just don't care where the universe came from. I don't care if God created it. I don't care if it's been here the whole time. I don't care if it fucking arrived via Amazon delivery. Just don't care. Don't care if you had to have Prime to get it.
It's all been rehashed so many times. Yeah, like you said, it's just boring.
Right. And anybody who's certain about any of this is just as dumb as the next motherfucker who's certain about any of this, because we don't really know in history what happened 1,000 years ago. So how the fuck are we going to know what happened billions of years ago? Like, we may have some ideas. We may be able to be like, oh, the universe was expanding, or maybe it's always expanding, or maybe it can't expand because it's infinite, or fucking what the fuck ever, right? Like, the planets were cooling. All right, cool, great. Or there's people like fucking Scientologists who think they know the dude's name, and that's weird. And so, like, I don't care about any of this. I'm really glad that we actually started this this project this one specifically after I had let go of a lot of that, because there's a lot of great religious people who hang out in this community, and there's a version of me from the past who they would not have liked very much, and I very much would prefer for them to like me. And now I believe before HK closes out the show, he has a bit of an announcement.
I do. So, as many of you know, I have been working for the past 2 years on my own company. I left LinkedIn just about 2 years ago. It was 1 year and 11 months ago. I left LinkedIn to start my own company and build an email service. Weird, right? I had this great idea about how to design email such that you can use your account to automatically organize your email. The way you give your email out automatically organizes it. So my email is hparent@port87.com. But if I'm giving my email to, say, Netflix, I would give hparent-netflix@port87.com. And if I'm giving it to a friend, I would give them hparent-friends@port87.com. And some of these addresses can receive automated messages. Some of them will ask the sender to verify that they're a human first, and you can configure them. It's super easy to use, and I just launched it. After 2 years of working on it, I have just launched port87.com. It's a brand new email service, so I'm ramping it up slowly. But if you want to try it out, go to port87.com right now and sign up for the wait list, and I will send you an invitation very shortly. I'm adding more users every day, so it's super fun to see people using it and to hear the feedback that I've gotten. If you have any feedback for me, feel free to hit me up on my email address, hparent@port87.com. And yeah, if you try it out, I hope you like it. All right, so now that my announcement's over, this has been Intellectual Dollar Tree. We do this show every Wednesday at normally 7 p.m. Pacific, but this week we did it at 8 p.m. Pacific. So if you want to catch us live, we stream it on twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. And if you want to support us, you can do that at patreon.com/Echoplex, or you can do it at our merch store, eplex.store. And if you want to check out our other shows, you can do that at echoplexmedia.com. If you're listening live, stick around after the song for Red Light. And this is Boomers by Periscope.